Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through a product lens on some of the exceptional founders we have as part of the LA community in an unedited, one take organic conversation. With us today is Zoe Wrenn. Thank you so much, Zoe, for coming down and sharing.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
This is going to be great. But first, a word from our sponsors. Founders in LA is brought to you by Distillery. Hey, Founders in LA listeners, Distillery, which is headquartered right here in Los Angeles, specializes in software development and staff augmentation and has supported the LA startup community since 2012. Trusted by local favorites like Thrive Market, Tala, and TrueCar, Distillery connects you with skilled developers who seamlessly integrate into your team to help move projects forward or create teams to build products with you. Whether short-term or long-term support that's needed, Distillery offers flexible solutions tailored to fit your specific needs. Visit www.distillery.com to learn more about how Distillery can support your growth. That's www.distillery.com. We're also brought to you by United Club. United Club is the co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, United is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With United, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, this podcast studio, plus standard 3D printers and 24/7 access at any of their locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their event spaces to nonprofits, and celebrate art, music, and culture. Join United Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at www.united.club. Our guest today is Zoe Wrenn. She is the founder and CEO of Tamber.ai. And Zoe, can you just give us a quick 30-second description of Tamber?
Yeah, Timbre is the Adobe Creative Suite of music creation, discovery, and production tools. People can think of it kind of as a bionic arm that helps musicians and producers be able to expedite their workflow, whether that be digital audio workstation, augmentation, speeding up trend recognition, helping people get viral and better music, while kind of cutting out the stuff that they don't want to do.
Oh, wow. So it's kind of like almost like an easy button. And not that it's ever easy to do music creation, but like the easy button from some of the more tedious tasks that would have taken you more time and were automatable. You're leveraging the latest technology to bring automation to an industry that could use it.
Yeah, I like to say the speed of discovery has sped up, but the speed of creation is not. So it kind of allows the artist to be able to speed up their creative process without feeling like they're losing control or anything is too synthetic.
So what would that look like from the artist perspective?
Well, I'm not just the founder of this company, I'm also the beta test. So actually the first song that I wrote with this software has around 30 million streams now. I wrote it in 10 minutes. I produced it in about an hour, which was exponentially quicker. It was the first pop song that I had ever written, charted in 12 different countries. And basically, the software just kind of helped me write a pop song from scratch. So, it recommended particular chords, BPM, key signature. And then I got to really work with it and mess around. And as I was working, it suggested inputs on my guitar, on my vocals. So it kind of works as a music theory maestro and producer to just kind of expedite that process and help you create in a more targeted fashion.
And it sounds like it's more like a partner versus kind of a set it and forget it. This will take all the things off your plate. Is it more like, there's still very much the artistry of creating, what you're building. This is just kind of like having an assistant that's just very well knowledgeable about the scene and up on the latest trends.
Yeah, I think assistant is the perfect word. I think, AI should come in and assist musicians right now and not replace them. We don't do any synthetic audio whatsoever. We don't do 100% generative things. We let the artist kind of come in and think of it like it's a new paintbrush, or we can hand you a particular palette of paint, but it's up to the creative or the artist on how they're going to use those tools and how they're going to use those colors to really create whatever they're feeling.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's, and you mentioned kind of the Adobe suite which is very much a tool set, whereas it's still the designer with the hands using and leveraging Adobe. It's a platform and a tool from which they can then do their art. It sounds that like that's similar with Timbre.
Yeah, I like to say too, I used to create video games, and I always used to think that the best video games were where you could have an open world and you could run in one direction forever and never hit a wall. So that's kind of how I approached building this software, was allowing artists to be able to run in one direction or in multiple directions in their creative process and never hit a wall. And by using AI, you really expand that world a lot more.
I'd love to hear you double click into that a little bit more. And also about how you came to be a founder in this space.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a musician my entire life. I was a classical compositionist. I was a jazz guitarist. I taught myself coding when I was about 12, 11, 12. You know, in my opinion, I think coding and music are the two universal languages. They're the closest things to each other, but God, I could go on about that forever. But basically, I mean, I was working for quite a few different companies as a coder right before the pandemic. The most recent thing I was doing underground mining simulations. And then when the pandemic hit, you know, all the mines shut down. So I decided I was just going to test this theory that I always had. I was just going to create the beta of this product, and that's what happened. And then that first song that I wrote went super viral, and I realized, you know, you get connected to everybody else that's had a viral song once you have one. Like we're all in a group chat, so I remember sending out a message to that group chat and just being like, "Where are your pain points?" And right now, as a musician, you know, it's difficult. It's a very rapidly changing industry. There are a lot of demands. You have to do things really quickly, and the psychological pressure can be very heavy. So I realized, you know, I think I'm uniquely positioned because I am a self-taught coder and I've kind of used the software to be able to create tools for these artists that they are still in control of. So I just thought, you know, who'd better be better to build it than someone who has used it and actually, you know, cares about the musicians.
Yeah, and right person, right place, and I mean, right skill set as well. So it sounds like you weren't, in third grade selling, you know, I don't know, selling something to other kids in class to be an entrepreneur. You followed your passions. It turned to video games. It was music and finding coding as kind of the bridge between it. And then, that's an interesting point that, one of the challenges in anything is like product market fit or trying to find like who you can speak to that be really who has the pain point that you're trying to solve for. And you find yourself in a unique position where you broke into this room that's a group chat of not that many people that's really hard to be a member of the club. But then here you find yourself a member of it and asking abilities to ask questions to them that few other people would be able to ask. And then also
Yeah.
fewer people would be able to solve.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting world right now with the rise of social media and a lot of musicians kind of coming out of it. I think it's amazing as entrepreneurs or as people that are building something because you can do A/B testing immediately. You know, you can put something out and get a public's reaction or a reaction from musicians as well. So, yeah, I mean that was definitely very helpful.
What's like a challenge, on this podcast, we like to, talk about like the challenging things that early stage founders are going through. And a lot of them, we find that have similar challenges that either just went through or about to go through or going through immediately right now. What is something that, in the last week or two, was something you came up across and then how are you approaching it?
Well, I wouldn't say probably the last week or two, but probably in the last 2 months. Something I kind of came across, and honestly, in the last 2 years, I think when you're fundraising, there's a lot of pressure from people to raise money immediately, and it doesn't matter, you know, who your investors are, just get money in the door. I am pretty much like the exact opposite, and people thought I was crazy when I was turning down money a couple months ago. But I definitely think early on, the investors that you bring in have to have very invested interest in you. I think that they have to help you go from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100. So finding investors that specialize in your weak points, I think are really beneficial. Our lead investor right now is really coming in and helping me hire because I currently am just a team of one. And I know that the hiring is going to be probably the most difficult part for me. And I think also finding at this pre-seed stage, finding investors that are really pre-seed. That was an issue that I found. A lot of investors will say that they're pre-seed and then are more, you know, later stage seed or even like early Series A. And I think finding people that really are in for the long haul for early stage companies is that was a big pain point for sure.
Can you speak a little bit to the difference that you've seen in, finding a VC that's really pre-seed versus kind of a later seed or Series A?
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry right now obviously there's been quite a few volatile bubbles that have burst. So I understand why some investors that maybe were originally very pre-seed that would invest like idea stage now want to see more growth or a stronger team. But I think people that are really looking to invest in pre-seed companies want to see like an MVP, want to see a good product market fit and at least like one or two use cases. And then are really investing in the founder and are helping them from that point on. That's at least the people that we currently have on our cap table are all that way. And are really interested in market makers. I would say people that have invested in legacy industries, but with new complex solutions. That's at least something that I focused on, and that's how I found the investors that I have on my table now that are like truly incredible and have been very helpful.
That's awesome. And it fits with like some of the other conversations we've had. You know, Joshua Lee comes to mind where he talked about you know, to your point, where you take the money is actually extremely important and when you take the money. So, you know, working with a fund, if you're the first company in the fund, is a different set of expectations than if you're one of the last. And there have been some
Hmm.
losers to that point. So then there's the pressures on you to succeed or, you know, have a you know, a variable that's even higher than you know, really are comfortable with probably most of the time.
Yeah.
Um, so then, or multiple, sorry. And then so I guess how did you go about trying to find that right fit pre-seed who's like really there for, you know, looking for you and cares more about, you know, the founder than some of the other things that are out there right now?
Well, so funny story. I had actually created a very basic kind of AI scraping bot that would go through a lot of different publications and basically compile a list of for me of different VCs that are early like pre-seed that have invested in these legacy industries and invested in these market makers. But then also would put together a list of very unique individuals. So people that were musicians or maybe like first hires at big companies that really thought outside the box. Because it's hard just to go in and just start finding people. You know, I don't come from a tech VC background. I mean, I come from a tech background, but not a VC business background. So from there, you know, then I would just jump in and do a lot of my own research. And that's, you know, hours of really, really looking for who you want to reach out to. You know, one of our investors that we got in last week is someone that I contacted a year ago through a blind LinkedIn message before I was even ready to fundraise. But I just wanted to start that relationship. So and our lead investor, I went and won a pitch competition, and then we've been we've been working together ever since. So yeah, it's definitely unique. I think do your research and really keep up with new investments in your space. It's kind of where I saw
Yeah,
it
and
working.
you have such a strong product founder fit, and it's an area of passion for you and a lot of people. So I can see that is also a way to look for folks is, you know, if it is a part of your passion, if there's a shared passion among you and your your investors, like that's important because passion is going to be very important as you guys are trudging through the early stages and even the later stages. Any of the challenges that come up, that any of the millions of challenges that will come up and millions of things you'll have on your plate, it's important to have, you know, common ground, common passion and understanding. So what is next for Tamber? Where are you at now, and then what's next?
So we're finalizing our fundraise. We close in about like a week, week and a half. So that's exciting. And then hiring is next steps. You know, I'd like to keep the team relatively small, but you know, I would like a powerful AI ML team. We're already interviewing. So yeah, I mean, hiring on and then launching the product out with a lot of different musicians. You know, the product has been done for the last 7 months, which honestly has also helped the fundraise. I personally believe that having it has been the most beneficial because I think it gives direction and then money just accelerates you in the right direction. But yeah, so just working on that acceleration towards the product dropping publicly.
And then how far along you think you were able, I mean, you're the coder, so it's kind of a cheat for you, but like, how far along were you able to get to funding? You know, oftentimes most founders aren't, you know, they're either not the technical or the creative, and you have a kind of the magic blend of, you know, left brain, right brain. And then it seems like marketing as well is because you're able to, you know, get a massive hit. Um, what were you able to what have you built to this point that you're able to get the funding on? Because I think that's, having an idea of, what stage people should be looking for funding, it could also be helpful.
Yeah, it's an interesting funding world right now. I started conversations about a year and a half ago before we really opened up, just so I could kind of see where people were getting comfortable to really start funding. And for me, it was, having the MVP done. And right now it's the product is done. There's obviously probably some weak points that I would love to come in and really finalize, but it's all usable. It's really fun to play around with. People can get their hands in it and really see it. And I think that's really important, especially when you're inventing a tech that has not existed before. People really need to be able to see it work. Having that first song that went really viral, just to show that there was a demand for it. I also put out like two of our potential features out on my own TikTok and got a wait list of like 5,000 people on. So it was a combination of all those things. It was the wait list, it was the MVP, it was the proof of concept in use in market. So I'm not gonna lie, it's been a lot of stuff. It's been a lot of stuff to get to this point. But it's a volatile market right now. So I think it's a little bit more demanding than, what it was like in 2012 or even 2020. You can't, I don't see a lot of people raising just from a pitch deck anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, I think those days are long gone. I think that's why we don't interview those types of people, because you can't just have
Yeah.
a really bad PowerPoint presentation with stick figures and get, you know, become Airbnb, right?
Mhm.
Um, Curious to hear about like the customers that you're going to be looking for. It sounds like you're creating a wait list. Like, do you have a sense of what that will look like?
Yeah, originally we had built this out just for musicians and producers, and that still is our core base. That's still who we're building for. But one thing I'm seeing, a lot of musicians right now, you kind of have to be a social media persona. I know that for me, I gain 1.5 million followers, and a lot of those people are not musicians, but are interested in my process, or might be interested in playing an instrument, or might be interested in production. But the entry points for each of those things is very high, and it's very difficult to kind of jump in. It can be daunting. So we also wanted to create some tools for people that are maybe novice or have never picked up an instrument before to be able to create. And then we've got a lot of discovery tools too. We've got a massive database dated back to 1942. So there are certain discovery tools where you can come in and find the number one song in Jordan in 1967, or explain like a complex feeling, abstract descriptors, and find an existing song. Or we even have stuff where we show a list of photos from Pinterest, and you can select a couple and then get a song that means that feeling of all those things together. So the core demographic has shifted kind of to anyone who enjoys and wants to jump into the creative and discovery process of music, which is, I know, a large database or a large user base, but it's kind of what we need to do right now.
Oh man, that's fantastic. And it just kind of just reminds me, like, I can't remember which platform. It was one of the music platforms probably 10 years ago, and they had like mood was one of the thing was one of like the big, it was like new at that time. And it was like, you could pick music based on mood. Um, this is an interesting, area where you're looking to go to, where it's like literally you could potentially revert, like flip that on his head, where like literally you could like show pictures and be like, create the music that will be on your playlist based on a mood or based on like a couple pictures. Is that kind of a reality that you're looking at, or is that like kind of a vision, like part of the vision for Tamara? Like, yes, it's for artists. It's automating some of the tasks. It's taking off some of the things off their plate that allow them to focus on creativity. But then in this world where like, I don't know, that's fat, like from the product lines, it's like, wow, all right. So then we're talking about, multimodal Gen AI, but like in a like very much music world where I can show pictures and create a conglomerated, aggregated mood that then creates music. And it's not, I imagine in a world, it's not just like if I have a picture of like a sunset, it's not going to be just a Jimmy Buffett song about sunsets. It would be something like tangentially related to it. And then all of a sudden, I'm listening to this music that's like literally tailored to me and that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the visual has always been so much part of music, but I think it hasn't been so much integrated into the discovery as it should be. And I think a lot of these amazing music tech platforms, like, I honestly think Spotify is one of the best ones that has launched in recent years, obviously. But I mean, one of the things I loved so much about them was their discovery features. So I think it's just kind of an expansion upon that as well, allowing the artist or even the user to just be able to be more conceptual to find things that sound like what they're seeing.
I mean, this is an incredible time to be building and an incredible time to be, you know, both a consumer and a builder. So thank you so much, Zoe. And you know, we like to ground this, you know, this conversation in Los Angeles as being our home. So like what's the most LA thing that has happened to you? It could be tech related, it doesn't have to be.
I would say probably one in the most recent years where I was like, wow, this is really LA. You know, I'm from here, so there's a lot of a lot of things like that. I was living with my best friend like a year and a half ago when I was in the middle of building this product. I had been up for a little over 48 hours coding, and she came into my room at like 6 in the morning and was like, all right, we're gonna go get smoothies because you've been inside for 2 days. And we hopped on the back of a Lime scooter listening to Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill on the way to Erewhon to go get smoothies. And I was like, this is LA, but I was like, this is the height of luxury. Like I was just thinking like, this is insane. And I came back with my overpriced smoothie and then coded for another 24 hours. So a little combination of the two, but it's a good memory nonetheless.
I was maybe was it the like the peanut butter smoothie from Erewhon? Is that's the one
I
that's
think it was like the Haley Bieber one. I hate to
yeah,
say it.
that's the one.
It
I
was
think so.
something I hadn't slept in so long. Who knows what I got, but it was good.
Oh man, Zoe, that's amazing. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing what you're building with and being a part of the LA community. We really have some strong builders and startup folks here. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Oh, this is awesome. Again, our guest has been Zoe Wrenn. She's the founder and CEO of Tamber.ai, available at Tamber.ai, conveniently
Mhm.
enough. I'd like to thank our sponsors again, Distillery and Unita, and I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. If you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button and visit our sponsors, distillery.com and unita.club. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Founders in LA.